everyone, and welcome to Expand Your Earnings, Earn More Money as a Freelancer. I'm Abbi Perets from Successful Freelance Mom, and today we're going to talk about what you need to do to charge more money, how to break down your service and price it correctly, why so many freelancers fail, and what you can do differently. And then I've got a little bit of a bonus for you at the end. If you have questions on what I'm talking about today, there's going to be a dedicated thread in the Upwork forums, so you can go ahead and post questions there, and I promise to answer as many of them as I can over the next couple of days. So hi, I'm Abbi Perets. I have worked as a professional freelance writer for about 20 years. I started freelancing with absolutely no experience when my first baby was born, and over the last 20 years, I've written for companies, magazines, websites, and more. I had 5 kids along the way, including one with significant special needs. I've moved internationally within the US and then internationally again. I initially built my business by working in 20 to 30 minute blocks of time throughout the day with lots of interruptions using simple, straightforward strategies that anyone can follow. At successfulfreelancemom.com, I teach people how to make money from freelance writing and how to build any freelance business the right way. I still make the majority of my income from freelance writing for clients, not from teaching. So I want to stress that I actually know and do the things that I'm talking about. This isn't just theory that I think will work. These are the actual strategies that I use in my own freelance business. So let's get started. You're here today because you want to expand your earnings and make more money as a freelancer. You want to charge more for the work that you do. You know that's possible, that you can earn more. You can charge more for the work that you're doing, but figuring out the how is hard. You need to know how to get your clients to agree to pay you more money, how to find the clients who are willing to pay you what you're worth, and how much you should charge. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and we'll go into detail on what you need to do to charge those higher prices, how you're going to break down that service, and why so many freelancers fail. And we're also going to talk about how you can build that waiting list of people who are ready to pay you what you want to be charging. So here we go. What do you need to offer in order to charge more money for your freelance services? And I want to stress that it doesn't matter whether you're a writer, a graphic designer, a Python developer, or anything else. What do you need to do to have if you want to charge more money and be as happy as this guy here? To charge more money for your services, you need to create an incredible customer experience. What does that mean? What does that look like? How can you get clients who look like this? The specifics of that incredible customer experience are going to vary a little bit according to what you do, but the idea is that from the moment a client hires you all the way through to when you deliver the work, the client doesn't ever have to worry. That means you're making life easier for your clients. You're anticipating problems. Of course, you're sticking to deadlines, and you're delivering an amazing finished product. Now, I'll tell you a little secret. If you spend a lot of time on the first 3, making life easier for your clients, anticipating problems, and sticking to deadlines, delivering that amazing finished product, 1, is going to be a lot easier, and 2, even if it's not completely amazing, it's going to feel amazing to the client because you've really knocked it out of the park on the first 3. And the first 3 things here, making life easier, anticipating problems, and sticking to deadlines, these are huge in the freelance world. If you can nail those 3, you're going to do just fine. Let me give you an example. Here's what happens when a client hires a freelancer often. The client says, I'm looking for someone to do this project. Maybe the project is write a white paper. Maybe the project is redesign my website. Maybe the project is build me an app. Whatever it is, the freelancer says, great, I can do that. It's going to cost you $1,000. The client says, great, fantastic, here's my money. And then the client waits. The client starts to get nervous. The client's emailing with random questions because the freelancer is not communicating and the client doesn't have a clue what's going on. In the client's mind, maybe the freelancer took that money and went to Vegas. The client has no way of knowing if the freelancer isn't communicating, and this happens all the time. Here's another scenario. A freelancer says, great, no problem. This work is going to take me 2 weeks. And then the freelancer goes head down and does the work. Now, from the freelancer standpoint, everything is great because, hey, I told the client it's going to take 2 weeks. But the client feels uncomfortable, like, great, 2 weeks, but I'd like to hear from you now and then. Think about when you order a package from Amazon. So you place your order on the Amazon website, you get that immediate email confirmation so you know that your order is being processed, and then like 45 minutes later it shows up at your house, right? That's what it feels like sometimes. But imagine if you ordered from a site that's not Amazon, some random site that you've never heard of before. So you place your order and there's no email confirmation, so you're not quite sure what happened. And you check your credit card statement and you can see, okay, you've definitely been charged money, but you don't have any sense of what's happening and nobody communicates with you, and you send an email and nobody replies to you. So then about 3 weeks later, your package shows up and you're like, okay, great, I got my thing, but I don't ever want to order from that site again because that was a really uncomfortable situation. You don't ever want your clients to feel like that. So how can you make sure that that doesn't happen and that your clients are always smiling? In order for that to happen, you have to have systems in place. Systems are the way that you streamline your communication with clients, that you ensure that you're keeping your word to your clients, and that you're delivering results and not excuses. Overall, like I said, your job as a freelancer is to make life easier for your clients, and you do that by anticipating their issues and their questions and making sure that they always know what's happening. So that means when you commit to a due date, certainly you deliver on that date, but it also means that you keep the client informed along the way. So if a project is going to take you 2 or 3 weeks to do, you don't just go head down. You let the client know ahead of time, hey, I'm going to give you an update at the end of this week, or I'm going to give you a daily update, or I'm going to schedule a call with you. We're going to talk for 30 minutes once a week. Whatever it is, you set those expectations ahead of time, agree on those, and then you create systems around your communication with the client so that it's easy for you to keep the client informed. You're going to create systems for getting the work done so that you know you're on schedule. When you set those expectations and follow through and do what you say you're going to do, it makes a huge difference in the way the client sees you and your business. So you need to create your own systems. Maybe you already have some systems in place for things like prospecting, invoicing, and following up with clients. But have you ever thought about creating systems for managing your communication, keeping your clients updated, and ensuring on-time deliverables? What might those systems look like? Systems can be all kinds of things. You might use project management software like Trello or Asana. Maybe you use PayPal for some of your invoicing. But systems don't have to be quite that complicated. It could be something as simple as the Notes app in your phone, or Gmail, that's a system for managing email. And even paper and pen can be a system. It doesn't have to involve technology. If you have a calendar hanging in your kitchen and it tells you which kid has which sport or after-school activity on which day, that's a system right there. It lets you know what's happening when. If you need to drive carpool, if you need to be providing snacks, can you tell what my life is like? That's a system. So systems don't have to be complex. My Notes app on my phone is a system that I use all week long. I write down everything in there. I have running notes that carry things like phone numbers for people I need to call, reminders for appointments I need to make, birthday presents I need to pick up if my kids are going to parties. If we have a shopping list, if we run out of milk, all of that gets jotted into my Notes app. And I have a system where when I sit down to plan my week, I know one of the things I need to do is check the Notes app and make sure that all of the information I've captured there gets transferred to the right places, whether that's being scheduled on my calendar, like I have to make time, go and pick up that thing from the store. or if I have to schedule other things or make those phone calls, I know that I need to check the Notes app and get all of those things transferred to the right places so that they actually happen. So you need to spend some time thinking about the systems that you need in your business so that everything runs smoothly and you're not relying on yourself to just remember everything in your head. I don't know about you, but I have a hard time remembering which kid I'm talking to, like what the right name of the right kid is, right? So to trust myself to remember everything I need to do for my clients would be a terrible idea. By writing things down, by creating systems, you don't have to remember everything. My husband has a saying, the opposite of forgetting is writing it down. And we've really adopted that as a mantra in our family. I highly recommend it. So, think about the systems you need for your business. And once you have those systems in place, it's time to think about breaking down your service so that you can price it correctly. Now, you can't do this until you know exactly what your service is. What do I mean by that? You need to do some planning. You need to think about what you do and who it's for and what that finished product is going to look like. So if you are constantly saying yes to every potential project that comes your way, you're not going to have the time and the headspace and the freedom to think about all the things that go into creating a stellar customer experience because you're going to be very, very busy in details. You're going to constantly be thinking about, well, how do I create this project? What is the final product? What is the deliverable? How much do I know about this topic? What do I need to do? I'm not quite sure what's happening. Your projects are going to have a constant feeling of uncertainty around them. But if you get super specific, you can save all of that mental energy and instead put it into creating this amazing experience for your customers. So instead of creating custom packages for every single client who shows up, you make a decision ahead of time about this is what I do, this is who it's for, and this is what I deliver every single time. If you've been in business for at least a few months and you've worked with a handful of clients, then you should be able to look back over those projects and think, okay, well, what did I most enjoy working on? Which clients really delivered the best ROI for me, the best return on investment? Like they were the most profitable, or it took me the least amount of energy, or it was just the most fun and engaging work. Think about those kinds of projects and think about how you can create a specialized service that delivers just that result for just that kind of client. So here are a couple of examples. I'm a writer, but you can't hire me to write your website copy because that's not the service I deliver. I deliver a very specialized service. I write email sequences and sales pages for online course creators. So if you're not an online course creator, number one, you're not going to be able to hire me. And if you're not looking for an email sequence or a sales page, you're also not going to be able to hire me. This makes it really easy for me. Anything that comes my way that doesn't fall into that very specific bucket, I can say no to. And when I say yes to a client, I know exactly what I need to do. I have a colleague who's a graphic designer, and she used to do all kinds of different graphic design work. So that might be designing logos or brochures or white papers or annual reports, any kind of thing that needed graphic design, she would do. But about 4 years ago, she decided from now on, she only designs Squarespace websites, and she works within a very specific framework, and she only takes on one client at a time. She has a 3-week process that she has perfected from the moment a client starts till the moment she delivers that finished website 3 weeks later, and she charges $11,000 per project. So think about that for a few minutes. When you start to specialize and you create that highly specific service for that very specific audience, you can charge more money. Maybe you're a programmer and you've been working on a ton of different kinds of projects. If you start thinking about, okay, you know what, I'm only going to create apps within a very specific framework, or I'm only going to be working on projects in OpenCV, or whatever it is, think about a very specialized service that you can deliver, that you can package up and deliver over and over again for a specific kind of client. What can you do and what can't you do within the scope of that specific project? So think about that thing that you want to do. And once you know what that thing is that you want to do, you can break each part of your process down into small steps. So you'll have to stop and think about what you do every single time you go through an assignment. If you're building that app for a client, what information do you need from the client in order to get started? Do you have to have a conversation about user requirements? How much time do you need for that conversation? What questions are you asking within that conversation? What do you do next? What's the very first step, and then the step after that, and the step after that? You have to really put some time into defining each step. If you're a designer, you're working on a website, what do you need from the client in order for you to start designing the website? Do you need to have all the copy written by someone else ahead of time and provided to you? Do you need a wireframe? What's happening here? What information do you need? What's your first step? What's your next step? All the way through to when you deliver that project. If you sit down and map out your process step by step, that's going to help you a lot. And then the next part of that is to literally figure out how long each piece of that process takes. So for example, when I write an email sequence for a client, I know that I start with a 2-hour intake call. I have a list of questions that I go through, a list of information I need from the client, and it's going to take me about 4 hours to review all of that information after the call. And then I also know from experience that it's going to take me about 2 hours to outline the sequence, and then I'm going to take about 90 minutes to write each email within the sequence. And I know how many emails are within that sequence, again, because I've done this again and again. So the first time you do this, it might be a little bit tricky. You might have to think, okay, well, I think this will take me about this long, and I'll have to check, but you'll do a project, and you'll do another project, and you'll check that timing, and you'll see what you need to adjust. And after you do a handful of them, you'll know, okay, this is what I need to do every single time, and this is how long it takes. So now you know all the steps that you need to go through and about how long it's going to take you to do. So now you can start to think about pricing. What I advise people is in the beginning, you can price your service based on the time it takes. And as you improve and become more efficient and you're doing the work faster, you can then start to charge based on the value you're delivering to your client. So again, I'll give you an example from my own history. When I first started writing email sequences, I wanted to cover my time at about $150 an hour. And I knew that the sequence had a set number of emails in it, and I allowed about 13 and a half hours for the actual writing piece. Plus I had that prep time that I talked about where I have that call with the client and I review information and I outline. So all together, I was putting in about 20 hours of work. So I did the math and I came up with an overall project price that I wanted to be charging in the beginning to cover my time. And that was about $3,000. And that's where I started. But over time, because I was only writing email sequences, I got better and better at them. And I was delivering a lot of value to my clients, meaning they were taking these email sequences and making lots of sales with them. So the value I was delivering was really significant, and I was able to charge more. So today, for the same work, I'm able to charge $8,000 instead of $3,000. So in the beginning, you can price your service based on the time it's taking you, and ultimately, you can move to pricing based on value. Now, I'm going to come back to these numbers in a couple of minutes, but I'm pretty sure that some of you are having some thoughts now along the lines of, holy bananas, I can't charge $3,000. I certainly can't charge $8,000. This lady is nutso. Where is Abby even finding these people? And why doesn't every freelancer make $3,000 per project? So let's address those questions. One, you can definitely charge more than you're charging now. Absolutely. And two, I'm finding a lot of these people right here on Upwork, and they're absolutely willing to pay what I charge them. And three, now we're going to dig in on why more freelancers aren't making more money per project. Why do so many freelancers fail, and what can you do differently? You don't want to be this sad guy, right? So many freelancers wind up in this position because they skip setting those expectations that we talked about. They're careless in their communication. They avoid opportunities to excel. And a big one, they miss deadlines. And if you do these things, if you don't set those expectations from the beginning, if you're not paying attention to the communication, you're not looking for ways that you can deliver value to your client, and certainly if you're missing those deadlines, the client feels like it's a scam. You're not going to do well. You're not going to be able to charge the prices that you want to charge. You're not going to be known for the value you deliver because you're not delivering value. This is where so many freelancers go wrong. But you can stand out from the crowd. You can do things differently. You can set those appropriate expectations from the very beginning. And it's super simple, like we talked about. It really comes down to just saying, okay, here's what's going to happen. You can have that timely communication. Keep the client informed all along the way. You can anticipate the client's needs. Look for those ways that you can add that value. And you can rock out your deliverables. Do an amazing job in what you're giving the client. And when you do that, the client knows you're a star. So in order to be that star, you have to go back and incorporate all of those things that we've talked about so far. You need to be clear on your offer in order to do this. So if you're still saying, I just want to freelance to make money, I just want to get paid, and I'll do whatever the client wants as long as I'm getting paid, that's not going to do it. You're not clear on your service. You're not going to be able to provide an incredible customer experience because you're going to spend all your time just trying to figure out, well, wait, what does this client want? Well, how do I do this? Well, I don't know how long this is going to take. I think it's going to take this long. I don't know. You're going to be a mess. You're not going to be able to be a star. If you take the time to figure out, all right, here's my service, here's who it's for, here's what I do, here's what I don't do, then you're going to be able to set those expectations. You're going to be able to communicate effectively. You are going to be able to anticipate the client's needs and meet your deadlines and deliver an incredible finished product. When you do that, you will stand out from the crowd. All right, so if you put some time into thinking about your systems and you build out your process and you can set yourself apart, now you're up to the part where you're ready to build a waiting list of people who are ready to pay you. How do we do that? Probably doesn't surprise you to know that you've got to go back to that process you defined, right? We talked about figuring out how much time each part of that process is going to take you. So remember, I said that when I do a typical email sequence project, that takes me about 20 hours, right? So I could tell a client, hey, no problem. I'm going to turn this around for you in like 2 or 3 days, right? No. Here's the problem. You have to think about calendar time, and you have to remember that we live in the real world. So you have to be generous with your time, and you can't assume that things are going to go well all the time. Your calendar can't be aspirational. What do I mean by that? Your calendar can't be what you hope will happen. We live in the real world. I don't know what your world is like. I know what my world is like. I have 5 kids, and one of them has special needs. And even my kids without special needs get sick sometimes because guess what? This is the real world. I get sick sometimes. In the real world, cars get flat tires. Dogs need to go to the vet. Husbands need to go to the dentist, right? All of these things can interrupt your workday. They can throw a kink into your schedule. They can make it harder for you to do the things that you want to do. And you have to assume that at least some of these things are going to happen every single week. I promise you that this is true. So if you build out a schedule based on, well, I'm going to have 6 or 8 or 12 hours to do the work every single day, and you schedule for yourself based on having that kind of availability, the moment that you get sick or something happens or your electric goes out or whatever it is, you're suddenly very much behind schedule. So you have to block time out on your calendar and be extremely realistic. Here's a great example. Let's take a look at this little calendar here. So you can see we've got one kid going to t-ball practice from 9 to 10 in the morning. And you can see we've got a PTA meeting, that's a Parent-Teacher Association meeting, from 12 to 1 p.m. So in between those two things, we've got this lovely block of 2 hours of free time, right? So what's your instinct? Your instinct is like, great, I've got this thing and it's gonna take me 2 hours to do and I can fit that right in this spot. Wrong. Because in the real world, in the best case scenario, this beautiful 2 hour block of time that you see is gonna turn into like 90 minutes. But in the real world, like the not best case scenario, it's probably more like 45 minutes to an hour, and that's just reality. Why? What happens? Well, you have to get from one place to the next place, right? Like the kid doesn't just magically get transported from t-ball practice to home. You don't magically transport to your office, whatever that is, right? So you've got to figure out how you're getting from one place to another. Then you've got to remember you're a human being. So sometimes you need to eat. Sometimes you need to go to the bathroom. Sometimes the doorbell rings or the phone rings or the dog needs to go out or whatever it is. Something happens and you have to deal with that. So you have to build these things into your calendar and understand that that beautiful, pristine 2 hour block isn't going to be 2 hours of focused work. I like to say too, like imagine for a moment that you've managed to get your whole family like on a flight to, I don't know, China, and they're stuck on a layover and they don't have any cell service, so none of them can call you. And you've got like this giant block of time. Again, you're human. You're not gonna sit down and do focused, deep work for 6 hours. Unless you're superhuman. You're a much better person than I am. I'm not capable of sitting and doing deep, focused work for 6 hours. I know I'm gonna need a break at some point, and probably more than one. So you have to treat your calendar as a real world document, not as what you hope will happen. So you have to block out that time in the real world. When I block out time for client projects, I figured out fairly quickly, I have that 20 hours of work that I need to do, but I know what my life is like, right? So I figured out that if I tell clients this will get delivered in about 12 to 14 business days, and I know that in my head. Now, when I tell the client, I give them a very specific date for that deliverable, but I base it on counting out 12 to 14 days on my calendar and figuring things out. I know that I can, within that time frame, I can absolutely deliver no matter what happens, no matter how many kids get sick. If I get sick, if I have an off day, I've given myself enough days and enough blocks of time that I can fit in the 20 hours of work that I need to do over the course of that 12 to 14 business days. So you have to go through this process and say, all right, I need to block out this, whatever my project is. If my project's gonna take me 10 hours or 20 hours or 40 hours, I have to look at my calendar. I have to give myself enough days and enough blocks of time that I'll be able to fit this in. So that might be over the course of 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month. And you might even be able to fit in a second project concurrently at the same time as that first one, right? But when that third client shows up and says, hey, I want to work with you, now you have to say, great, I'm going to schedule you for your project 30 days from now. That's when I can start. So you can't schedule people into blocks of time that you've already allotted to something else, right? So you have to know that you've got that realistic time frame happening. Now, this feels a little bit scary, right? Because you're like, well, but the client wants me right now. Here's the thing though, when you start to focus on that one specialized service that you deliver and you do it for one specific type of client, you're gonna start to get known as the person for that thing, for that particular type of client. So people are going to want to work with you specifically. you're going to up level your game here. You're going to be working with a higher caliber of clients. So you're no longer going to be working with people who are like, oh, I need this tomorrow and you need to put your life on hold and do the work. That's not what you're going for. That's not how you're going to create that premium client experience. You're going to have a schedule and work on your schedule. So if you have a long-term client who comes to you and says, I've got something that's super urgent, can you please help me? You can make that decision and say, sure, I'll help this person. But you don't want to start off relationships with new clients by saying, oh yeah, no problem. My life is irrelevant here. What matters is you. I'm going to drop everything and give you this project for tomorrow. That's not what you want. If you have a premium service, it takes the time that it takes and your schedule is your schedule. So by telling people this, you're actually going to show them that you are in demand, that you are a person who has work. And it is terrifying, and I do understand that in the beginning it can be very hard. But if you promise everybody that you're going to do that work, you're going to run yourself into the ground. And if you say to a client, hey, great, I'm going to do this work for you. Here's when I'm going to start, and here's when I'm going to finish, and here's how the process is going to look all the way through, it's going to be okay. Because you will be working with real clients, and as a professional, you're able to book according to your schedule, and you'll be able to even take a deposit from them up front so that they have reserved time in your calendar, and you know that that work is there. You don't have to worry they're going to go somewhere else. Upwork makes this so easy. You can simply have them fund the project, fund the milestones, and put that money in escrow. And then Upwork is holding on to it for you, and you don't have to worry about it because it's safely there waiting for you to complete the project. I do this all the time with Upwork clients. They are perfectly happy to fund the milestones, to have that money sitting in escrow waiting. They know that I'm going to show up and do the work. And they know that those funds will only be released once I have done the work and everybody's happy. So this is how you let people book time on your calendar. They can only save that time. They can only reserve that spot if they have made some sort of deposit. And this lets you build out your calendar with confidence. You know that work is there. This is a really cool thing for freelancers. It means that you can do things like take some vacation, and you know that you've still covered your income. You've still provided yourself with a way to continually be earning money and lining up work and not making yourself crazy and not working yourself into the ground. So, your next steps. I want you to determine your specialized service. Put some time into thinking about what is the thing you are going to be known for? What are you going to be offering people? And then you're going to break down your process so that you know all the parts of that and what goes into everything that you need to do. Excuse me. And then you're going to set up your calendar so that you can book out. I want to help you with this process, so I have a bonus for you. You can head over to successfulfreelancemom.com/expand. And you can get a workbook that's going to walk you through this process of figuring out what your service is, breaking down your process, and figuring out the timing for your calendar so that you can book out. So all you have to do is head on over to successfulfreelancemom.com/expand. You'll be able to download that workbook there, and you'll be able to use that to put together your premium service. I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope that it's useful and helpful for you. Like I said, if you have questions, there should be a dedicated thread in the Upwork forums. Drop your questions there. I will get to as many of them as I can over the next couple of days. Thanks so much for paying attention. Thanks so much for being here. I've had a blast. I hope you did too.
Huwag kalimutang mag-subscribe at i-press ang notification bell at piliin ang all para lagi kayong updated sa lahat ng mga susunod na video ko. Ciao!